Grandpa Frank had survived the Great Depression, 2 wars, and 53 years of marriage to a woman who thought feelings were best left unspoken. But nothing, absolutely nothing, had prepared him for Christmas dinner 2025 when his 12-year-old great-granddaughter looked his daughter Margaret dead in the eye and said, "It's time to replace you, Mom. You don't help me with anything." The turkey went cold, the cranberry sauce congealed, and Frank, at 92 years old, decided it was finally time to break his carefully cultivated habit of minding his own business. "Well now," he said, setting down his fork with deliberate care, "that's quite a declaration, Sophie girl." Sophie didn't even look up from her phone. Her thumbs continued their frantic dance across the screen, presumably consulting with whatever digital oracle had convinced her that mothers were disposable. Margaret sat frozen, her serving spoon hovering above the mashed potatoes like a question mark made of silver. Frank's son David, Sophie's grandfather, cleared his throat in that way that meant he was about to say something diplomatic and useless. Frank shot him a look that said, "Not this time, boy." "Sophie," Frank said again louder, "I'm talking to you." The phone lowered, just barely. Sophie's eyes, ringed with whatever that black stuff was that girls wore now, met his with the supreme confidence of youth and stupidity. "What, Grandpa Frank? I want to know what you mean by replace. Your mama break down, need new parts. I got a catalog around here somewhere for fixing wives, but I seem to have misplaced it." A snort escaped from Sophie's father, James, before he could stop it. Margaret's eyes glistened dangerously. Frank ignored them both. "I'm serious," Sophie said, straightening in her chair. "Mom doesn't help me with anything. She doesn't know how to do my math homework because it's different from when she was in school. She can't help me with coding because she doesn't understand Python. She doesn't even know the YouTube tutorials I need for my science project. I literally have to figure everything out myself or use ChatGPT." "ChatGPT," Frank repeated slowly, as if tasting something bitter. "That the replacement you got in mind?" "AI can help me with everything," Sophie said, warming to her subject with the zealotry of the recently converted. "It explains things better than teachers. It knows every subject. It never gets tired or impatient. It's available 24/7. Mom just, I don't know, she tries, but she's basically useless." The word hung in the air like smoke from a gun. Margaret stood abruptly, her chair scraping backward. "Excuse me," she whispered, and fled toward the kitchen. Frank watched her go, then turned back to Sophie with the full weight of 9 decades in his eyes. "Your grandmother died in 1998, he said quietly. "November, cold rain. She'd been sick 6 months, and we all knew it was coming, but knowing doesn't help much when it arrives." Sophie's thumbs had stilled. Around the table, everyone had gone silent. "Week after the funeral, I'm sitting in my chair, same chair I still got today, and I can't figure out how to work the new VCR your daddy bought me. Tried everything. Read the manual 3 times, which was in English, but might as well have been Chinese. Got myself so worked up, I wanted to throw the damn thing through the window." He paused, taking a slow sip of water. "Know what I realized sitting there? Your grandma used to do all that. Program the VCR, set the clocks when the power went out, work the answering machine. I never learned because she was there. But you know what else she did that I didn't notice until she was gone?" Sophie shook her head, almost imperceptibly. "She knew I took my coffee with 2 sugars, but only 1 on Sundays because I had pancakes and didn't want it too sweet. She knew I got quiet when my hip ached and would bring me my pills without asking. She knew I needed the news at 6, but would fall asleep if I sat down before dinner, so she'd keep me moving until after we ate. She knew every damn thing about me that made me me, and she adjusted the whole world accordingly without ever making me feel small for needing it." Frank leaned forward, his weathered hands flat on the table. "That's not in any manual, Sophie. That's not something a machine can do, no matter how smart folks say it is. That's love doing mathematics no computer can calculate." "But Grandpa," Sophie started. "I'm not finished." His voice was gentle but iron firm. "You say your mama doesn't help with your homework, But I watched her last month spend 4 hours after her work shift watching YouTube videos about whatever your science project was. Volcanoes, was it? So she could at least talk to you about it at dinner. Might not could do the work for you, but she wanted to know your world. Margaret had returned from the kitchen, standing in the doorway. Mascara tracked down her cheeks, but she was listening. You say she doesn't know coding, but I heard her on the phone with her sister, asking did her nephew know about it, could he recommend some courses she could take, even though she's scared of computers and works 10-hour days. She was trying to learn your language, girl. Frank shifted his gaze to his daughter. Margaret, come sit down. She obeyed, moving like someone in a dream. Your mama, Frank continued, speaking to Sophie but looking at Margaret. She might not know Python from a Python snake, but she knows that you get headaches when you're stressed and that you reorganize your bookshelf when you're worried about something you won't talk about. She knows you say you're fine with chicken nuggets, but you really want her lasagna. She knows you pretend you're too old for her to braid your hair, but you sleep better when she does it anyway. Sophie's phone lay forgotten on the table now. She knows you, child, not the you that exists in some computers training data. The real you, the one who's scared and brave and brilliant and sometimes cruel without meaning to be. The you who's growing so fast she's losing her balance. Your mama sees all of that, and she loves all of it, even when you make it real hard to. A tear rolled down Sophie's cheek. She wiped it away angrily. I want you to do something for me, Frank said. I want you to go ask that ChatGPT thing you like so much. What should I do when I'm scared my mother doesn't understand me anymore? See what it says. I know what it'll say, Sophie mumbled. Something about communication and expressing feelings. Probably so, probably real good advice too, generic enough to fit anybody, Frank nodded. Now I want you to ask your mama the same question. Watch what happens. Watch how her face changes. Watch how she sits with it, really sits with it, feeling what you're feeling before she even tries to answer. Watch how she knows the difference between when you need advice and when you just need someone to be angry with you or sad with you or scared with you. Margaret reached across the table, her hand trembling slightly. Sophie stared at it for a long moment and then slowly placed her smaller hand in her mother's palm. I'm sorry, Sophie whispered. I didn't mean, I was just frustrated, and everybody at school says their parents are useless, and I guess I wanted to sound cool and… SHH, Margaret said softly. I know, baby, I know I'm not always the help you need. I know the world's changing faster than I can keep up, but I'm trying, I'm always trying. I know you are, I see you trying. I just got so used to figuring things out myself that I forgot. Sophie's voice broke. I forgot that maybe I don't always want to. Frank watched his daughter embrace his great-granddaughter, and he thought about his wife's hands, how they'd known the exact pressure needed to soothe his shoulder after a bad day. How they'd gripped his when their first child was born and their last parent died, and how they'd squeezed his fingers in that hospital bed at the end, saying everything that mattered without words. Nobody's replacing anybody at this table, he announced, reaching for the bowl of now lukewarm potatoes. Now let's eat this dinner before it's completely ruined. Your grandma would haunt me if I let good food go to waste. Later, after the dishes were cleared, and the tension had melted into the kind of exhausted peace that follows a storm, Frank found Sophie in the living room, staring at her phone. Talking to your friend again? He asked. She looked up, then turned the screen so he could see. It was a text to her mother. Can you help me with my essay? Not to write it, just to talk about it. The reply came immediately. Always. Give me 10 minutes to change into my thinking sweats. Sophie smiled, and it was real. Grandpa Frank, how did you know what to say? He settled into his chair with a satisfied sigh. Lived long enough to learn that the newest thing ain't always the best thing, and the old things aren't just old, they're tested. Your mama, she's tested. She'll be there when the power goes out, the internet crashes, and the whole world feels like it's moving too fast. She'll be there in ways you won't even notice until you need them. He paused, then added with a wink, besides, that ChatGPT thing doesn't make lasagna worth a damn. Sophie laughed, and somewhere in the kitchen, Margaret did too.